temple. Here's a sacrifice taking place, laid over a sacrificial stone, an obsidian blade entering the chest, stylized blood spurting. Here's the undulating serpent, possibly an ancestor emerging from the mouth of the serpent. And this bloody-tipped obsidian blade symbol with a face on it represents the sun, as if the sun were entering the temple. And the duality which is always present. This is Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, the god of light, life, artistry, the wind, and knowledge, his arch-rival and nemesis, but also his alter ego, Tezcatlipoca, smoking mirror, the god of deceit, sorcery, darkness, death, and the underworld. These are usually depicted with their backs touching, facing away from each other like two aspects of one deity. There's a story about these two that the Aztecs told, a legend about two rival Toltec rulers, the Toltecs being their ancestors. There were these two gods incarnated. Tezcatlipoca was all about human sacrifice. Quetzalcoatl was against it. So Tezcatlipoca got Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, drunk on pulque and tricked him into committing incest with his sister. And from the shame of it, he was banned from the city. So he traveled east with his followers towards the Gulf of Mexico. When he got to the ocean, he made a raft of snakes, and he sailed east, setting himself on fire and rising as Venus, the morning star. But he promised his people that one day he would return at the end of a 52-year century in the year one reed. And that was the year that Cortez landed on the coast of Veracruz. In his human form, he had a long black beard, and so did Cortez. So the messengers went back to tell the Aztec king the feathered serpent has returned as predicted, and they invited Cortez and his men into their city as honored guests. And that's partially how they were so easily able to subdue the Aztecs. The other reason was their worship of this deity. Huitzilopochtli means hummingbird on the left. This is the god of war and sacrifice associated with the sun. Hummingbirds were believed to rise from the chest of a fallen warrior to carry his soul away, so that's a reference to warfare. But that deity was insatiable and needed a constant flow of human blood to be appeased. So much so, that turned out to be the downfall of the Aztecs, their worship of that deity, because they sacrificed so many people, constantly raiding the villages of the people they dominated for victims, that all those people joined up with the Spanish to help overthrow them out of revenge. He is associated with the color yellow in the south. Xolotl, sacred dog, the shaman guide of the Mexica people who had the vision of the eagle, snake, and cactus, which is now the Mexican flag, and that's the deity that guides you through the darkness of the underworld. Coatl is snake, Quetzalbird, or feathered serpent. Mixcoatl is cloud serpent, the Milky Way galaxy, and the patron deity of the Mexica and the Otomi people. Tezcatlipoca is smoking mirror, this one, and then my favorite of all, Xipe Totec. Xipe Totec is the god of the springtime, or the transition from dry to rain, associated with the east. His name means our Lord, the flayed one, because when the rain came every year, one of the most important events of the year to bring about the growing season, in order to honor that deity, they would actually flay the skin from a victim and wear it like clothing during their ceremony. The flaying of the skin was like a seed breaking and new life emerging in the spring, leaving behind the death of the dry season. The wearing of the skin represented a new layer of green, like a new skin that covered the earth when the rain came. They actually discovered a clay figure beneath the floor of the room to the left of the doorway that looks like a priest with 4 arms. When I asked them about it, they said, Albert, if you look more closely, you'll notice it's actually a priest wearing the skin of a victim. So that bloody ritual may have happened right there in that room, or right where you're standing. But all of this bloody stuff I've been talking about is cause for what I call the largest case of culture shock in human history. When the Spanish saw these things happening, they said we have to either kill these people immediately or convert them. They are heathens and pagans, but to the Indians the Spanish were strange because they didn't do what was necessary to keep the cycles in motion. Even their eyes played tricks on them. When they saw the first Spanish arrive on horses, what they thought they were seeing were beasts with 2 heads and 4 feet. They'd never seen a horse. The prehistoric horse had gone extinct thousands of years earlier and came back in domestic form with the Europeans. So the horses, the steel weapons, the gunpowder, and the diseases that were brought over wiped out almost 90% of the population, and that turned out to be the beginning of the end for them. That was not the end of the tour, though. That was just the high point. It's all downhill from here.
Can I ask you something? This seems to be